In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a recruitment system for your agency from scratch. This is going to be a completely custom internal tool that we're going to build out for your agency, taking you through how to build the database, how to actually build the application, and showcasing the different possibilities of what you can actually do with something like this within your agency. This is the video that was requested by Fidos. Sorry if I messed up your name. That's exactly what we built out here. Fully custom internal tool where you can track the different applications, track some key application stats, have a clear overview of all the different positions, integrating different buttons within the actual leads to automatically assign interviewers, and provide an overview for the interviewers to actually log in and see the interviews that have coming up or track the specific applicants for this specific role. As always, this is going to be a completely uncensored insight on how to actually build internal applications for your agency. So if you want to build a recruitment system like what we built today, or just want to learn how to use internal apps to create really custom tools based on your specific circumstances, then you're going to enjoy this video, guys. I don't want to waste any more of your time, so let's get straight into how to actually build a recruitment system for your agency. Alright guys, so like I said in the introduction, today we're going to be building a recruitment system. Now, initially I got this idea from a comment that was left on a previous video where we did something similar, but instead of a recruitment system, we're building a project management system from scratch. And Akfidos, apologies if I absolutely butchered your name, but he basically wanted us to create a recruitment management system for HR, which immediately I thought, what a great idea, because it's something that's really useful, especially if you're constantly bringing in new people within your agency. So I was going to go down the road of basically doing the exact same thing we did last time. We're setting it up completely from scratch, and that's still what we're going to do today. But thankfully for me, NoLoco already has a really good template when it comes to application tracking. I can show you what this actually looks like. So as you can see here, it's very good. You can track all the applications, some different stats, all the different applicants, the positions available, actual interviewers that are doing interviews, and the different departments. And this is great. And that's actually what we're going to be building out together in this video. Now, don't get me wrong. You could easily just go to NoLoco. I'll leave the link below if you want it as well, and just copy and paste this directly into your account, the template. So feel free to actually use it. But the whole purpose of this specific video is just to show you how you can build something like this by yourself. So we're basically going to be building out the exact same thing, but instead of copying a template, we're going to build it from scratch. My goal for this video is that hopefully at the end of this video, you understand how you can actually use these no-code and low-code builders like NoLoco, like Software, like Bubble to actually build different internal apps or tools for your own business, which are fully custom, integrate easily with automation, and actually have secure data regulations when it comes to sharing data with different team members. If any of that sounds exciting or interesting, then I can guarantee you actually enjoy this video. So let's actually get straight into how we're going to be building out this recruitment system. So this is going to be split into 4 different steps. If you watched the previous video where we actually built something like this for project management, you'll know that the first step of actually building any of these internal tools is setting up a database. Now this is extremely important because this is basically going to be how our app functions. It's going to be a backend of application. So for this, NoLoco, which is a software we're actually going to be using in this example, and I will touch on that quickly. It doesn't really matter which one you're using. If you're using Bubble, NoLoco, software, I think it's Frame.io as well. There's a bunch of different softwares available in the market. We use NoLoco for our partners within our agency because it's the easiest to use. And it doesn't really affect us because obviously we have developers actually building this out for us. But at the end of our program, we like to hand everything back to our clients. We want to make sure that it's easy for them to actually maintain it. That's why we use NoLoco. It's a great software. But once again, guys, I'd recommend testing out your favorite ones. Most of them have free trials, and I'm finding the one that actually works for you. But for this example, we're going to be using NoLoco, and they've already done all the hard work. They've already set up the databases for us, but I'm still going to show you how you could do this by yourself if you didn't have this. So for this example, we're going to be using 5 different databases. We're going to use the applicants database to track all the different people that are applying to the different job. We're going to track a positions database, which basically will show us the amount of jobs or positions that we actually have available. We're going to track in an interviewers database, which is just a database where we have all the interviewers that can actually take the interviews, our department database, so different positions will be within different departments, and a user database, so we can actually assign different roles within the application. Now, like I said, guys, NoLoco's already done most of the heavy lifting for this, but I'm still going to put everything in a nice, clean Google document so we can have a clear insight of all the different fields we're going to be tracking within our application and how they actually link with each other. So we're going to go ahead and create a Google Doc to map this out as clearly as possible. All right, guys, so as you can see, I've got a Google Doc laid out with all the different databases we're actually going to be tracking. And now we basically want to just lay out all the different fields that each database is going to have. Now, a field is just basically a section within a database. So, for example, if we're tracking applicants, one of the fields we could track is the applicant name. It's just the different pieces of data we're going to be tracking for each row within our database. So, like I said, NoLoco's done all the heavy lifting for us, but just to really lay everything out as clearly as possible, for applicants, we're going to be tracking their name, their email, the stage they're in. And for this example, the stage is going to be no hire, interviewing, decision needed, hire, contacted, sorry, interview scheduled, and candidate. We're also going to be tracking the phone number, any social profiles, their resume, which is actually going to be a file, why they actually applied, their location, their current role, what they're actually applying for, which is going to be a linked field. And for those of you who are not familiar, linked just basically means it's going to be linked from another database. And I'll get more into that in a second. And guys, if all of this looks like gibberish right now, I recommend you actually skip, let's say 6 minutes into the video where you can actually see us building out these database within NoLoco. Now, in this specific process, we're going to be doing 2 interviews. So for this, I'm also going to track the first interviewer, which is once again going to be a linked field. View, I can't spell, which is going to be a linked field again. We're also going to be tracking the first interview notes. We're going to be tracking the second interviewer, which is also going to be a linked field, and the second interview notes. Once again, just because we're splitting it into 2 different interviews for the candidates. So since we're tracking a first and a second interview, we should also track the interview dates. So I could put first interview date here, and the same exact thing for the second interview. So second interview date. And because we're going to do a first and a second interview, we're also going to include an interview score for each one of the interviews. So for this, I can just put a first interview score. That's going to be 1 to 5, where 1 is no hire and 5 is hire ASAP. So for superstars, basically. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the second interview. I'm going to give them a score after they actually finish the interview, or I should say we'll get the interviewer to give them a score after they actually finish the interview. Perfect. And that is pretty much it, guys. So obviously there's a lot of different fields of tracking here, but it's all going to make sense when we actually start building the database. Now I'm just going to repeat this process for all the different databases. I am just going to go ahead and speed this up just because it is a bit repetitive, but as soon as it's done, I'm going to take a second and go through everything and then show you how these different databases are actually linking together with each other. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up now. All right, cool guys. So yeah, as you can see, I went and actually filled in document 5 main databases to track in and also the different fields. Once again, guys, if this looks like complete nonsense, just skip ahead to the video where you actually see us building out these databases and filling all the relevant data. But before we do that, I just want to show you which one of these fields are actually linked between the different databases. So applying for is going to be fields because that's going to be linked to the actual position that they're applying for. The first interview is going to be a linked field because we're going to link it to the actual interviewer. And the same goes for the second interview because we're going to be linking it to a specific interviewer who actually take that interview. And apart from that, in terms of applicants, those are the only linked fields. So if you scroll all the way down to position now, we have these 3 fields at the bottom, which are actually linked. First is interviewers, which basically means which one of the interviewers are actually taking that role for that specific position. The departments, because we're going to link a position to a department, and the applicants, because obviously the applicants are going to be applying for the different positions. And if you go down to interviewers, the linked fields they have is the first interview, the second interview, the number of positions they actually are looking after, and obviously we're going to link them to a specific user so they can actually log in and actually use the application. And then for department, we're linking the positions and the interviewers. And lastly, for user, the only thing we're linking is the actual interviewer, just so we have a place for them to log in, see the different applicants that are actually applying to different positions. So I'm happy with this. It's a good initial system. Now we're actually going to head over back to NoLoco, which is our no-code app builder we're going to be using for this specific tutorial, and start building these databases out from scratch. All right, guys, as you can see, we're back in NoLoco now, and I've gone ahead and actually created a new application. Now, like I said, for this example, I'm going to be using NoLoco, but honestly, guys, it doesn't really matter which one you use them. The only reason we use NoLoco is because it's a lot easier for the clients to actually manage it after we actually finish a build. But you can use any no-code app builder to do the exact same thing I'm doing today. What I'm showing you can be applied to different applications. If you do want to sign up to Loco, I've got the link in the description, so feel free to actually check that out. So now that we're in no local, we want to head over to data, and this is where we're actually going to be start building out the different databases. So as you can see, we already have the user database and we have a random family database, which we're going to go ahead and delete. The cool thing about NoLoco is that you can actually link different databases. You don't have to do this on NoLoco, so you can use Airtable, SmartSuite. I think they have even Google Sheets. They have a bunch of different integrations that you can actually use. But I always recommend using the actual database that they provide for you within the application if it's suitable. And in this case, is more than able to actually handle all the amount of data. So for this, the first database we actually want to create within NoLoco is the applicants database. So I'm just going to add a new source. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different options here. But for now, I'm just going to do NoLoco tables. Perfect. And for this one, it's going to be applicants. As you can see, they have some suggestions here of where I can actually start, as well as some default fields. But for now, I'm just going to leave it empty. Just press save so we can really start this from scratch. Perfect, guys. So I'm going to do the first one live, similar to what I did, and then for the rest, I'm going to speed up. If you notice now in the bottom corner, you also see that document that we created earlier, so you can just follow along live as I'm building this out. So the first thing we want to add is the name. So for this, I'm just going to press a new field, and I'm going to name it name. Oh, just like that. And it's going to be a text field, and it's going to be a single line. Perfect. Now this field will be unique, so I'm just going to take that and add a new field. Perfect. Now that we've added name, we also want to add the email address. So for that, I'm going to search for email. And then for the field type, I'm going to put text again, but this time I'm going to put email address just like that. And this field is also going to be unique. Cool. Now that we've done the email, we need to go ahead and add the stages. So for this, I'm going to put stage. And for the field type, I scroll down to single option select. And this is where I'm going to add all the different stages. So we have candidate, we have interview scheduled, we have contacted, we have hire, we have decision needed, we have interviewing, and we have no hire. Now, I am just going to restructure this a bit because the order is a bit messed up. So I went ahead and just reorganized it, but that's the stages that we're actually going to be selecting. Then we need to add the phone number. So for this, I'm going to put phone number. And for that, if we scroll down, we can see the phone number right there. I'm going to add that field as well. Then we can add some different social profiles. So this will be the social media, and that's just going to be a text. And we can put long text for this example. Then we want to add the resume, which is going to be a file. So if we put a resume and then we go for field type, we scroll all the way down to file upload, and we are going to allow multiple files just in case. Now you're probably wondering why I'm collecting so many fields, but you'll see that after this, we'll actually be able to turn this into a live form that applicants can simply fill out. So like I said, if this is confusing at all or just seems like gibberish, just skip a bit longer in the video and you actually see everything coming together. So we just added the resume. Now we want to actually add why they applied. This is going to be something that they're going to fill out themselves. We go here, why they applied. And for the field type, we're going to text again. And this is going to be a long text. Add the field. Then we'll add a location just so we have an understanding of where they actually are from. So if we scroll down, we can actually put the address. We can actually put the street address just like that. And then you're done, guys. And then we have the current role. And if we go to field type, once again, that's going to be a text and it's going to be a single line. Now, I am going to leave the link stages until the end because it's a lot easier to actually build us out once we have the different databases. So we're going to skip the applied for and the first interview, but we are going to add the first interview notes. Scroll down to text, and then we're going to put long text for this one. Then we're going to also add the first interview date, and that's going to be a date. We're just going to put date and time because there's a meeting. Perfect. And then we also need to add a first interview score. For field type, this is going to be a single option select. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. I'm going to add that field. And then you're done, guys. Now we have to do the exact same thing for the second interview. So firstly, we're going to add the second interview notes. And that's going to be text, long text. I'm going to add a second interview date. And that's going to be a date. And it's going to be date and time. And the second interview score. And for that, it's going to be a single option select. And once again, just 1 to 5. Just like that. Perfect. So that's the applicant database filled in. The only thing we're missing here is the linked records. But once again, I'm going to do that at the end once we've actually built out all the different databases because it makes my life a lot easier. So I'm just going to speed this up now and do the exact same thing for positions, interviews, department, and I'm going to touch up the user database. And then we're going to come back and do all the link records. And once that's done, we can actually get started building finally. So I'm just going to speed it up. If you are really interested into what I'm doing, just put in 0.5 speed or however much you want. But yeah, let's get straight into it. Alright guys, so that's pretty much done. The only thing we're missing here is the linked records, which I can go ahead and actually set up now. So firstly, for applicant, if you scroll all the way up here, first we need to add a link records for the position that I'm actually applying for. So for this, I'm going to put applying for, and then for field type, I'm going to scroll all the way down to link to another record, and I'm going to link it to the positions record because they're applying for a specific position. I'm going to allow them to apply to multiple positions, and on the positions collection, I'm going to put applicants. So I'm going to go ahead and actually add that field. Now we also need to do the first interview. Now we just have to repeat the same thing for the first interview and the second interview. So for this, I'm going to put new field. I'm going to put first interviewer, sorry. And then once again, for field type, I scroll all the way down to link to another record, and then I search for interviewers. I'm not going to allow to link multiple records. And for the field name, I'm going to put first interview, just like that. And I'm just going to add field. Perfect. I'm sure the exact same thing for the second interview. So for this, I'm going to add another field, second interviewer. And then for field type, I scroll all the way down to link to another record, and then I choose interviewers once again. And I'm going to put second interview. Perfect. So that's pretty much done. Now, if you go to positions, we want to do the exact same thing. So if you scroll down, we can see the applicants collection is already there. So the only thing we need to add is the interviewers and the department. So for this, I'm going to add a record. Oh, sorry. I'm going to add a new field. I'm going to put interviewers. For the field type, once again, scroll all the way bottom to link on a record, and this time I'm going to put interviewers. I'm going to add to link multiple records, and I'm going to add that field. Perfect. And then exact same thing for departments. So department, I'm going to scroll down to link another record, and this time I'm going to choose department. I'm going to allow multiple records, and I put position. Cool, guys. I'm just going to do the exact same thing for the rest of the highlighted fields we have right there. Once again, if you want to watch me do it, just speed it up. Alright guys, so we've now gone ahead and actually linked all of those relevant records to the database. There's one more thing we need to do before we actually begin to play around with it, and that's actually imported some data to actually play around with. So usually I'll just go into ChatGPT, similar to what I did in the last video, and just have a specific prompt for it to generate a specific CSV file with all the data that I actually need. But in this scenario, once again, because we're just copying this from NoLoco, we can easily just export the data they already have and just import it in our application. So as you can see here, we have a bunch of different data. They used Airtable in this example, but it doesn't really matter. So for this, I'm just going to go ahead and export it. And just like that, that's done. I'm just going to repeat the same thing for positions, for interviewers, for department, and also for the viewers. Now, once that's done, we go back to application, and all we have to do now is just import the data we just exported into our application. Now, the only reason I actually like to do this while we're actually building out is because when we go to the app side of things, we can actually have some data to visualize an example of what our app could actually look like. Because if it's empty, we won't really get a real insight of what the application actually looks like when there's data actually in it. So I always like to do this when I'm actually building out different things. So let's get started with applicant. For this, I just go to import. I select that CSV file, which in this example is applicants, open that up, and now we just have to match different fields. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and import it. We'll once again have to clean up the link fields in a second, but for now, I'm happy with that. Let's do the exact same thing for positions. So once again, just go over to import and just drag and drop that specific positions file. So there, we'll leave the UID, we'll update the ID, but apart from that, I'm happy with that. So I was going to head and actually import that in. Same exact thing for interviewers. And I'm just going to go ahead and actually repeat that process for department. So as you can see, guys, now we have an app with all the different data. I'm so happy to finally get here. It took us a while, but the only reason I actually wanted to take time to go through the first stage is because, yes, in this example, we already have the data already built out for us, which is great. It does make our life a lot easier. But let's say you're doing this for something else in the future, you won't always have the data there ready for you to just come in and just copy. So I want to take time to go through how to actually find that data, how to structure it the right way, and how to actually show you to create that data within your application, regardless of whether or not you already have that database ready for you. So I'm super happy with that. Now we can actually move on to actually build an application. So this is going to be split into 3 different steps. First, we're going to build the navigation, then we're going to build the pages, and then we're going to build the individual record pages. Now, all of these are super, super important if you want to actually have an application or internal tool, I should say, which is actually useful and that your team can actually use on a day-to-day basis. Let's start with the navigation. This is actually how our users are going to move around the application. Now, this is a bit simpler than the project management video we did a couple weeks ago, simply because we don't have a bunch of different roles. From internal roles to external roles, everyone will see the same thing because this platform is specifically just for interviewers and team admins, just to overview that the interviewers are doing a good job. So in this specific scenario, we don't have to create different navigation bars with different views for different people because team admins and interviewers will see the exact same thing, which does make our life a bit easier. So once again, Noloko's already given us a navigation guideline. We're just going to go ahead and actually build this out within our application. So for this, we're going to go back to application, and then for the app, you can see right now we have nothing. So we want to go ahead and actually add some of these pages. So firstly, we're going to add all applicants, which is just a record page with an overview of all the different applicants. So we're going to rename this all applicants. Then we're going to go ahead and add a blank page because the second page is the applicant stat page. So it's going to be a bunch of different drops. So the easy way to actually do this is just have a blank page, guys. Perfect. Then we'll also add another applicant section. This is going to be more like a board for different applicants. So I'm actually going to name this applicant board. Then we want to add the position section so we can actually see the different positions that are available. So for this, we're going to go to positions. And within this, we're going to create 2 nested views, one to see the open positions and one to see the closed positions. So I'm going to clone as nested view, and I'm going to rename this to I'm going to rename this to open positions. And I'm just going to copy that and rename this closed positions. I can move myself out of the way. Cool, guys. 2 more things we need to add. Firstly is the interviewer section, which is already there, perfect, and a department section. Cool. So if you go back to app, now obviously there isn't much data here, but you can see how this app is coming together, where we can navigate through the different pages, see the different data fields, all through this navigation bar. Now, if you go to the settings, Noloco actually has this cool options. We can actually have this at the top or the side. I'll show you both. You can obviously decide which one you want. I think both are quite cool. Usually I always do on the side, but just for this video, I might try out the top just to make it a bit different. Whilst we're here, we can go ahead and actually change the design. So obviously right now it's kind of ugly grayish. So I'm just going to change this to orange. I'm not going to do orange just because I feel like you guys are getting sick of seeing orange everywhere. So I'm just going to change this to a nice little blue. If we go back to our application now, look quite cool. I will also add our logo. So for this, I can just change this and just upload my logo. Honestly, I just run ahead and actually upload a random logo. So that's that. I'm happy with this. And that's pretty much it for the navigation side of things. Now we can move on to step 3, which is actually building out different pages. So in total, we have 8 different pages to build out. Now we're tying very, very closely to the navigation side of things that I showed you earlier, which is why I did it firstly. Now this is actually a great example to show you how easy it is to build out these no-code internal apps for your agency for different use cases. Obviously, in this example, we're using this for recruitment and for HR. But as we build out these pages, you're going to see how to build out different tables, collections, graphs, set up different filters, even set up a form for the applicants to fill in, regardless of whether they're part of the application or not, and also set up different cards. Now, guys, before I actually go ahead and get started with the next stage, I'm just going to go back to the data and clean up the linked records. When you import the data, it's a bit harder to import all the different linked records. So for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and do that manually. And then when we come back, we can actually get started and jump straight into actually building out these different collections. So I'll see you in a second, guys. Bye bye. All right, guys. So I'm back. And as you can see, I did update a couple of the linked fields. So if I go to interviews, now they have interviews, different applications that actually apply for different roles and different positions, have different applicants and different interviewers. Once again, not necessary, but it does make our life a bit easier when we actually build an application. So now we can actually get started and build the different pages. The first page I'm actually going to do is the all applicants page, and I'll put the reference here to see what we're trying to build. It's just a table basically with a couple of different filters. We have the table sorted at the moment, but I don't want to necessarily include all of this information. And that's why we don't have any filters set up. So if we go back to the editing side of things, and I'm going to move myself out of the way. As you can see at the moment, we have table layout. We could also change it to cards, depending on how you're trying to do this, which I think it does look a bit cleaner. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as a card. Now, you can't do a bunch of different things. For example, group it by different I don't know, locations, resumes, stages, positions they're actually applying for. But I'm just going to leave it at this. But at the moment, see, we have a lot of information here, which you don't necessarily want to actually show. So if we go over to fields, we can actually filter which fields we want on the cards and fields we want to just leave within the actual record. So, for example, why they applied, I don't think necessarily has to be there. I think location is quite cool. Current role would be quite cool. Current role is not necessary. First interview notes is also not necessary. And if we scroll down, let's see. We'll leave the resume there because I think it's good to check that quickly. We'll leave the location there. Social profiles we don't need. We'll need the stage, the phone number, and the actual email, and the name. And I also want to include the role they're actually applying for because I think it'll be quite very, very key for us to just get a good understanding of who's actually applying for what. Now, as you can see at the moment, it still shows certain fields even though they don't exist. And you get these ugly little two dashes, which in this case, I don't really want. So if you go over to any of these fields, we'll start with resume. We can go over here and then we can set conditions so they only show in certain circumstances. Only showing conditions are met. And I select applicant and then I scroll down to the resume and I can put the ID, for example. And for the operator, I can put is not empty. So now, as you can see, because they don't have a resume on the field card, then nothing's showing up. But if there was a resume there at the moment, then it would show. It's just a way to actually clean this page up a bit more. We're also going to do the exact same thing for location. So if you go back to location and we put only showing certain conditions are met, then we find the applicant and we scroll down until we see the location field and we just put street, any of them, doesn't really matter, and the operator will be is not empty. So now it doesn't show it. So as you can see, you already started cleaning up data, and this is just the overall dashboard or different applicants. So if you go back here, you can see in the example that the local actually built out, there's a bunch of different filters. So we actually want to go ahead and actually add that. So for this, we're going to go over to options. And if you scroll all the way down, we can see we can add different filters. Now, there's a couple of things we want to add. Firstly, it's a search bar, so you can quickly just search for specific applicants' names or different positions, anything like that. We're also going to be able to filter it by the name or by the stage, I should say, sorry. So if you go with the stage and turn this on, you can see now we can automatically filter it depending on what stage the actual interview is in. Another filter I think will be very, very useful is what they're actually applying for. So you can actually filter it depending on the different jobs that you want to see. And if necessary, you could also filter it by location, just like that. So you would search a location. So for example, if you want someone that's near Las Vegas, I don't know, you can put Las Vegas and it'll only show you people that are somewhere near Las Vegas, which in this example is none. So once again, just an example, but if we open this up now, we can see we can set different filters for different positions they're actually applying for, or even different stages that the interview is actually in. So if you go over here to interview scheduled, now it only show us applicants, sorry, that have scheduled an interview and are applying for chief creative officer. So cool way to play around with it. There's a bunch of different things you can do with filters. This is an example. Another thing I actually want to do is create an applicant form. Now, this is something I mentioned earlier when we were building a database, but one thing with a local, you can easily make this form public. So if you want someone to apply for a specific job, they can just fill in this form without having to log in an app or anything like that. So Nuno's also done this. And once again, I'll add a screenshot over there for the form we're actually going to be building out. It's a bit different to what you see here. So we're going to go ahead and actually clean this up. So if you go back to editing, if you press new applicant, this is the form we're actually going to be creating. So we're going to rename this to submit application because this is something that the actual applicant is actually going to be creating. So we're going to put submit application. Perfect. Now we want to add a bunch of different fields. The name we're going to keep, the email we're going to keep, the stage we're not going to keep because we're going to automatically update that ourselves. Phone number we will keep. Social profiles we will keep. The resume we 100% will keep. Why they're planned we will keep. Location we will keep. And current role we will keep. We will remove interview notes. And apart from that, we also want to include what they're applying for. But apart from that, that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to rearrange this a bit to make it match the example that Nolo could actually build. So we have the name here, what they're actually applying for, the email, the phone number, any relevant social profiles, which we'll move towards the bottom because it's not as important. Let's go down here. Also going to move the current role a bit higher, the resume there, why they applied there, and then obviously the location. For the location, obviously it is address, but I'm going to put autocomplete address just to make life a bit easier. And yeah, so obviously, see some fields are required and some fields are not. We want all of them to be required. So if you go over, for example, to applied for, and we scroll all the way down, we can make it required. So now they can't actually complete a form without choosing a specific field that they're actually applying for. We're going to make all of them required. because we want everyone to actually complete the form in full. So I'm going to do the exact same thing for the phone number, resume, obviously. And if you go to resume, you can see you can also limit the amount of files that are actually aligned. In this example, we really want images, we want text, and we want docs. That's pretty much it. In terms of why they applied, they are filling it out, so you can't really name this why they applied. You can easily just rename this to why you're applying for this role. It's a very, very minor difference, but this just shows how you're allowed to actually change different fields so they can actually fill in the form properly. Cool, guys. So I'm happy with this at the moment. The only thing I want to change to actually make this live is just to enable the public form. And as you can see there, we have the public form URL, which I could easily just copy and paste, and someone can actually apply for it. And then after they get a thank you message to let them know the response has been saved. Perfect, guys. So I'm happy with this. That's basically the applicant page is done. Now I'm going to move on to the next step, which is actually creating these different graphs. And for this, like I said, we are going to be using a blank page. But there's a bunch of different graphs you can include here. If you go to the logo, we go to, I don't know, applicant, we go to charts. You can see there's a bunch of different options: line graphs, area charts, bar charts, even funnel charts. I mean, there's a bunch of things you can play around with. We're going to replicate the ones that Noloco has first, and then we might even add some more. So for this, we're going to do line chart. And here we just want to track the number of applicants that we actually have in applying each day. So for the X value axis, we're going to scroll down until we see the created at. And for the time period, we're going to sum it up by day, just like that. Now, at the moment, it's in summary. We just wanted to count the number of applicants that we actually have in every single day. And if you go back to series, we go to y-axis, here we want to actually just choose the ID. So now it's basically counting the amount of applicants that we have in every single day. As you can see, we have a wide stretch in data. But for what we're doing now, this will work perfectly fine. All you want to do is actually label this axis. So the chart title is going to be applicants by day. And because there's such a wide discrepancy between the dates, I mean, we're going all the way from 2016 to 2024. I'm just going to change this to group by year instead. So if I rename this group by year, perfect. Now you can also add theories, but for now we're just going to leave it as that. The next thing we want to actually go and do here is add another graph that shows applicants by stage. So once again, for this, we're simply going to add another chart. And if you go to the charts, this one's going to be a bar chart. And for the X value, we're actually going to choose the different stages. So you can see now it's automatically grouping it with different stages. But instead of summary, we're going to put count. If you go back to the y-axis, instead of we're just going to put an ID. There you go. So now we can see we have all the different stages there, as well as the number of actual applicants for each stage. So now all we have to do is actually go back to the logo and add the chart title, which is applicants by stage. Just like that, guys. So now we've got the two charts. Before we move on to create another chart, I do want to add a filter. You can filter the data by position and the actual stage that the clients are in. So for that, I'm going to, similar to what we did last time, I'm going to filter fields within the options tab. And if you scroll all the way down, you can see we can filter it by the stage. And we also want to filter it by actual position they're applying for, which is all the way at the bottom right here. So now if we actually play around with these filters, I can go ahead and tap this and I can only, let's say, filter this for candidate people, which is no one here. But if I go just for contacted people, you can see we only have one result. As you can see, guys, there's a bunch of different charts you can actually do. And usually when I create these like breakdown pages, I would like to include some key metrics at the top of the page. Now for this, you can use the statistic option or even the pie chart option or the gauge option. There's a bunch of different options. So a reason why I chose a blank page rather than a collection when I actually went to set this up is because we can display different data from different databases all in one page. So I'll show you an example. Right now we have this collection. If I go ahead and add another collection, instead of going for the applicant side of things, I go for, I don't know, the position side of things. Now we can have another graph, if we go to charts and back again, of, I don't know, the number of positions that are closed compared to ones that are actually open. So here, for example, if I choose, I don't know, a pie chart this time, and then for the x-axis, I actually scroll down until I see position status, which is basically closed or open. And I just change this to count, and I change the series to ID. So you can actually, you can see now we have a cool pie chart showing the number of app positions that are closed compared to the ones that are not labeled, which if we go back to the data and we go to positions, scroll here and we change these to open, this one to closed, this one to open, and then this one to open. If we go back to our app, now we have a clear kind of pie chart showing us which positions are open, which positions are closed. So obviously for now, I'm happy with this. Let's move on to the next step, which is actually the application board. Now, as you can see in the example, this is the Kanban board, where we want to see all the different applicants flowing along the different stages with a couple of filter as always. At the moment, this is the table, so we can go and actually edit that by pressing this little edit button right here. And if you go over to general, you can see we have a bunch of different options, but the one we're looking for is board. So here's automatically put it along the different stages, just like that. And if we move this from first to last, and now if you go from left to right, you can see we have candidate, contacted, interview scheduled, interviewing, decision needed, hire, no value. Now, I want to do the same thing I did in the first step where we actually cleaned up the actual pages because we don't want to show all of these fields. In terms of UI, it doesn't really work out. So if we go back to fields, we're going to hide most of the stuff. So why they applied, we're going to hide. We're going to hide the resume. We're going to hide the social profiles. We're going to leave the stage. We're also going to remove because we can see it at the top right here. Location, we are going to keep. We're going to keep. We're going to move away the current role. We're going to move away the interview notes, but we are going to include what job or position, I should say, that actually applying to. And a very, very similar thing to the last time. We don't want to show fields that are actually empty. So for example, if we go to location, we're only going to set a condition so that it only shows when actual location is available. So for that, we're going to go to only show when conditions are met. We go to applicant and we scroll all the way down to location and we go street or anything like that. And then for the operator, I say is not empty. So now it only shows the street if it's actually not empty. Now, this is an example of a conditional field. I'm going to show you one more example. If you scroll all the way down to interviewing, we can actually include the score that they get in the interviews if it exists. So for this, we're going to go to interview score, and we also want to put the second interview score. And there's a couple of filters we want to add for these specific fields. So firstly, for the first interview score, we're obviously going to only show it when it exists, but I also only want to show it if the client is within the actual interview or decision needed stage. So for that, I'm going to add, once again, tick when conditions are met. I'm going to select the data. And firstly, we're going to scroll down to the first interview score and then is not empty. But I'm also going to add a and filter, which also only shows it if the actual stage is one of, and then I'm going to disable dynamic values and I'm going to choose decision needed or interviewing. Now, if you go all the way here, we can't see any first decision scores. But if you go back to our data and we choose someone that's actually within those stages for the applicant side of things, so we'll choose Reese, number 4. We'll just give him a score, let's say 5. Now, if you go back to Reese and we scroll all the way here, within the interviewing stage, Reese actually has that first interview score. So once again, just a more complicated example of the conditional fields you can actually show. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing for the second interview score. So I'm going to enable conditions are met. If I go to data applicant and data applicant, and then I scroll down to second interview score. And for the operator, I'm going to put is not empty. And I'm going to add an and filter, which also only shows it if the applicant is within that specific stage, which in this example will be stage is one of turn off dynamic values and interviewing or decision needed. Just like that, guys. So if you go ahead and actually enter application, you can see the data looking so much cleaner already. It just makes life a bit easier. Now, another thing that NoLoco did in the example, they added different filters. This is something we did again in the previous step, but it's very, very simple. We're going to want to go back to options within the actual application board. We're going to add some filter buttons. Now, by here, we're going to filter by what job they're actually applying for and their location, just like that. You could obviously add more than this, but for now, I'm going to leave it. So now, for example, if I wanted to show only people that are applying for Chief Creative Officer, I can go ahead and click that, and now it'll only show me people that actually apply for Chief Creative Officer. Once again, guys, all I'm showing you here is examples because I want you to get an understanding of how you can actually use the database for something else, regardless of whether you're doing recruitment, project management, CRM, sales pipelines, everything like that. The way I see it, the more things I can actually show you guys, the better understanding you'll get of how to use these different tools within your agency to build really, really custom applications for your specific use cases. Perfect. So we've gone ahead and actually created the applicant board, the application status, which just shows a couple of charts with the different filters, the applicant board. Now we want to go ahead and actually create a position board. Now, at the moment, it's just a random table with no real filters, which isn't the worst thing, don't get me wrong, but I do want to clean up a bit. We're going to leave this as a table, but if you go over to edit, we're going to hide some of the fields like we did in the previous step. We're going to leave the description. We're going to leave the position status. Also going to leave the department and the actual interviewers, just like that. And for that, I'm quite happy. There's not much we need to do here Obviously, we could add different filters similar to what we did in the previous step, but instead I want to focus more on the open positions and the closed positions. Now, the only difference between these two is that they have filters on the actual page for what data they're actually showing. So open positions should only show positions that are in the open stage. Now, for that, we need to go over to options. And as you can see, at the very, very top here, we can add a filter for the entire page. So for this, we're going to put all, we're going to add an and filter, edit that. And then for the field we're actually looking for is the position status. We want to only show the positions that are actually open. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put is equal to, I'm going to select the value, I'm going to turn off dynamic values and select close and select open, sorry. So now it's only going to show the positions that are actually open, which if you go here, you can see it just like that. Now, if you go back to the positions board, you can see this shows all the data and the open positions only shows the data of the positions that are actually open. Now we'll do the exact same thing for the closed positions, but this time all we're going to do is instead of showing positions that are open, we only want to show positions that are actually closed. So very, very similar thing to last time. We're going to over to options, relative filter, or we're going to add an and filter. If we go to field, we're going to select the position status and put is equal to, turn off the dynamic value, and then choose closed. So now this is only going to show us data of the positions that are actually closed. Very, very simple, guys. Now, if you go to positions, you could also add different filters. That's what Noloco did, as you can see in this screenshot. But I'm happy with this. Next, let's move on to the interviewer side of things. And we're making really, really good progress, guys. I'm so happy with this. So let's keep up the pace. So at the moment, we can see you only have 3 different interviewers in a table format. And that's basically how Noloco left it. This is all right. Don't get me wrong. However, I think it can get very, very messy. So I'm gonna change this actually. If I go over to edit this, I don't want it in the table. I'm going to go to general and I'm going to change this to a card. So now you can see the cards of each different interviewers, and I'm going to have most of this information within the actual record page, which we're going to set up in the next step. Because I think at the moment it'll get very, very messy, especially once you start growing your database. You don't want all the interviews that actually taken being shown here, because as you can see, the cards are pretty stretched out right now, and it doesn't look that appealing and can just lead to the interviewer being overwhelmed with all the data that they actually see. So for this, I'm going to hide most of this. I'm going to hide the first interview collection, the second interview collection. Positions collection, I'm going to leave. I'm going to hide the user collection, but I am going to leave the departments collection. Now, within the user collection, if we open this up, we can actually the profile picture, which you do want to do in this example, just like that. And then we're going to put that all the way at the top, right under the name. So if they did have a profile picture, it would come up here. You can also have different layouts, such as circle image, inline, or thumbnail. So for this, I'm going to put circle image. Now this is much, much clearer. When we get on to the actual record pages, we're going to show that information we just hit now. But for now, we can leave it as that. Super happy with that. The last thing we actually do is to touch up the department side of things. Honestly, guys, I don't want to really show too much here. There's not much data to play around with. So honestly, I'm even happy to leave it as that. The only thing I might change actually is just to enable inline editing. This basically means that I can edit these values straight from the table without having to enter any of the actual record pages. I'll just make my life a bit easier, especially for the departments, because there's not much data to actually play around with. So I'm going to go over here and just enable inline editing for both the interviewer and the position collected. So if I'm a team admin or I don't know, an interviewer and I want to edit any of these things, I can simply just open this up within the application without having to actually open up these record pages and then edit the record individually. Now, guys, I'm super happy with what we've done so far. We built out the navigation, we built a database, we built out different pages, and I've shown you how to set up different things like tables, collection, graphs, filters, forms, and even specific cards for the different web pages. Usually, this is where I'd pause and clean up any of the data, but honestly, I think we've done a pretty good job. So let's just move on to the last step, which is actually creating the record pages. Now, there's 3 different types of pages we want to edit here: the applicants page, the positions page, and the interviews page. I will say it's very, very important to get this right, because whilst what we did in the previous step is very important in presenting the different data to the user actually using the app, the record pages will allow the user to actually see individual records, edit individual records, and actually use the app rather than just look at the data and have a clear kind of insight on everything. So we need to make sure we do these record pages right, because if we do, it will allow the user to use the app properly and actually be happy when using the app without any stress. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it. The first thing we actually want to do is make the application page. Now, this is the example that Noloco had, and I think there's a lot of key aspects I want to include here, and a lot of key aspects I also want to change around. Sorry, guys. Let's actually get started with the actual build. First thing we want to do is highlight certain sections from the actual application. So I'm going to hide the first and second interview date. I want to show what position they're actually applying for. Um, I'll show their name again and their email, as well as maybe I can link their resume right there. So it's easy for whoever's checking it just to click. Obviously, looks a bit squashed right now, but in the actual application, it'll be all right, maybe apart from the email. So this is just some key data. You can display different things, but I think for right now, this is the most useful. So as you can see at the top, we also have this progress bar, so we can track the specific stage that the applicant is in. And this can be updated automatically just by clicking it. So if I want to move it to higher, no higher, whatever. There's a bunch of different options you can actually do here. So at the moment, this still looks very, very messy. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and delete all these collections just so we can start from scratch. Guys, a cool thing about these record pages is that you don't have to host everything within one specific page. If I go over to the actual go pages, right, and I scroll down to tabs, I can add different tabs within that same record page. So usually what I like to do, I like to create at least 2 tabs, and in the second tab, I call this my details tabs. Sorry, I call this my editing tab. And if I go over to it, I always add the details field. And here, this is where I add literally every single field apart from the ID and stuff like that. So whoever is overlooking this specific applicant can easily come here and change specific information. So as you can see, I'm just adding literally every single field apart from the default fields, just like that, guys. Now, for example, let's say the interviewer needs to edit any information, any of this is right. They can easily go to the editing page, press this little edit button, and you can see they can edit so much information here. The second interview day, the actual role they're applying for, so much information you can edit. Just put together in one page to make everyone's life a bit easier. Now let's go back to the details page, and I'm gonna rename this to actually general. I'll go over here and just rename this to general. Perfect. I do want to add some different things. The first thing I want to add is the first interview kind of summary if it exists. So for this, I'm going to go over to details, and the fields I'm going to choose to include here is all the information that's relative to the first interview. So this is going to include the first interview score, the first interview date, the first interview notes, and if you scroll up to the actual first interviewer. Just like that, guys. And if you go over to options, we're going to name this or title this, I guess I should say, first interview summary. Now, the key thing about this is that I only want to show this when the first interview has actually taken place. So for this, I'm going to go over to visibility, and I'm going to add a custom rule. So if we go to data, applicant, I'm going to scroll down to show this when the interview actually exists, or the first interview actually exists. So for this is going to be signified when there's actually a first interview date. So I'm going to put first interview date, and then for the operator, I'm going to put is not empty. So now you can see this specific person, we can see the first interview summary if I move myself out the way. However, if we were to go to another applicant, for example, I don't know, Lane, and we go over to editing, remove that first interview date, just like that. If you go back to general now, you can see all that first interview information is disappeared. We don't want to show it if it doesn't exist, which is why we went ahead and did that. I'm just going to do the exact same thing for the second interview summary. So for that, I'm just going to copy this to save myself some time. And I'm just going to change these things from first interview to second interview. Perfect, guys. And then once again, all we have to do here is just change the filter. So instead of first interview, we want to make it second interview. The second interview date and is not empty. Perfect. So in this scenario, for some reason, this guy has a second interview date, but not a first interview date. But as you can see, we can already see the information or the summary from the second interview because that's the one that actually exists. Cool, guys. So far, I'm quite happy with this. The only thing I want to add here is some record buttons. Now, this is what Noloco added. We added the option to actually assign interviews and a way to actually just go straight into the second interview notes. I'm happy with that. I think those are actually quite cool buttons to actually add. So I'm going to show you how to actually do that. So once you're within the record pages, we want to scroll down to action buttons, and we're going to add 2 action buttons. The first one is going to allow us to actually edit the interviewers that are actually in charge of the specific applicant. So for that, I'm going to edit this. There's a bunch of different options you can actually press. You can put modal buttons, which basically means you have to confirm first, or one-click buttons. So as soon as you press it, it just activates. For this, we're going to put modal buttons because we're going to be selecting the interviewers for that specific applicant. So I'm going to put local modal buttons, and I'm going to name this one assign interviewers. Perfect. And if you go over to actions, there's 2 actions we want to actually do. We want to update a record twice. So for this, I'm going to put update a record. And for the fields I want to show is just the first interviewer and the second interviewer. Just like that. Super, super simple, guys. Now, if you open this up, you can see we can automatically assign a specific interviewer, if you go to hidden value and just choose someone just like that. But we want that the actual interviewer or team admin that's seeing this to be able to choose the actual interviewer they're actually assigning. So for this, we're just going to leave this as blank, just like that. And we'll do the exact same thing for the first interviewer, the second interviewer. Very simple, guys. So if we go ahead and actually rename this to assign interviewers, and we're going to change this to green, why not? And now if we go over to our app and we press this button, you can see now we get the option to actually assign the interviewers to the specific lead. So for example, if I do Andy here and Karina here, sorry. Now if you scroll down, you can see the editing side of things. So you can see they already have that second interviewer and that first viewer automatically assigned based on the things that we did here. And I can show you an example if I can actually go ahead and change it straight away. So I want to put Kareem for the second one and Ari for the second interview. Just like that, it's done. So that's the first action button we want to set up. Now we want to do the same thing for a interview summary kind of thing. So whenever a center interview comes, the interviewer can just come straight to the record page, press a button, and then automatically update all the information. So for this, is going to be a very, very similar approach to what we did last time. We're going to go to buttons again, and this time I'm going to update the second button. So the name for this is going to be second interview summary. Perfect. I'm going to change this one to warning. Why not? And I'm going to leave as a modal once again because we do need the person filling out to actually input that data for us. So if I scroll all the way down to actions, and guys, as you can see, there's a bunch of different things you can do, from deleting a record, creating a record, going to different pages, viewing the record, but for this, we're just going to focus on actually updating a specific record. So fields you want to update, if you scroll down, because this is relevant to the second interview, we want to update the second interview notes, second interview score, and the actual stage that the specific applicant is in. Perfect. Now, once again, if you open this up, you can set, different filters for what data you want to show or how you actually want to include it. Honestly, I'm happy with this. And just to show you guys an example of what it actually looks like, if we go over to application and let's say the second interview is now finished for this specific lead, we can go over to second interview summary, and you can see all that information. We can edit the notes, the actual score we want to give them from 1 to 3, and the actual stage that the lead is in, and just press confirm, and that's automatically going to work and update that lead for us. Very cool, guys. All right, so that's the applicant's page side of things done. The next thing we want to do is actually update the positions page. Once again, this is going to take a very, very similar process to what we did now. But if you open up a random position page, you can see at the moment it's just all over the place. So I'm going to add the exact same strategy I did in the previous step. So first, I'm going to create 2 different tabs, where the second tab is the page with all the different informations, so we can actually editing the specific values for that position. So if we go with editing, and we add the details, and I'm just literally going to include every single field apart from the default fields. The only reason I do this so it's easy to edit any information. I try to do this as much as I can, because when you're dealing with a lot of data, you need something like this. You can easily just come in, edit specific things without having to go to the actual database, which is the number one thing you don't want to do. Perfect, guys. As you can see, if I press edit, I can easily just edit this information from the click of a button. Cool. So now if you go to the detail side of the page, at the moment it's showing a lot of information from the departments, the interviewers, and that summary. This is not bad, but once again, I'm just going to delete this and start from scratch just to make our life a bit easier. I will go ahead and leave the open and close side of things though. Cool. So the first thing I want to add is a collection. And here I want to show all the applicants that are actually applying to this position. So for that, I'm going to choose the applicant database. And if I go over to cards, we can see all the different applicants. We don't want this. We don't want to show applicants that are actually applying for this position. So for that, I'm going to go over to options and I'm going to set up a filter. And this example in Loco makes it very, very easy. You can just go ahead and actually choose the applicants collection. So it's only going to show applicants that are actually applying for that specific position. And here you can automatically add a new applicant or assign a new applicant even if you wanted to. We're going to go ahead and name this to, I don't know, applicants or position applicants, I should say. Perfect. And now we also want to add the interviewers for this specific thing. So I want to do a very, very similar process to what we did in the previous step. We want to add a collection. And if we go down to the interviewer side of things now, I'm going to leave it as a row, but here we only want to show the interviewers for this specific position. So once again, options. And if you go over to options, you can see we can automatically assign the specific interviewers, which in this case is just Andy. Now I don't want to show this information, so I'm going to hide this and I'm going to hide this as well as the user. So very, very simple. You could add a profile picture if you wanted to, which I always like to do because it puts a face to a name. And just like that, if it did exist, it would show up there. Perfect. Within here, I'm going to show you an example of how you can actually change this button. If I were to press this at the moment, it will take me to a form to actually create a new interviewer, which I don't really want to do. So if I go back to the position side of things, open up the page, if I scroll down, I want to change this button so that it doesn't show a new record button. Instead, we can edit related records. So instead of me actually creating a new interviewer, if I go ahead and press this, I can just automatically select the interviewers that already exist and assign them. So for example, if I want to add Karina here, just by pressing that, I can automatically add it. And if I want to unlink Andy, I can just go like that, and I'll automatically unlink Andy from this specific position. I'm super happy with this, guys. I think for this specific record page, we're pretty much done. We can edit whether it's closed or open. We can see all the different applicants that are actually going through, and we can see the different interviewers and automatically assign different interviewers just by pressing a button. Very happy with this, guys. The last record we actually need to do is the interviewer records. Now, when we actually created this page, I hid a lot of the information because I didn't want to overwhelm the user while they're going through the app. But now we're going to use this interview page to combine all the information. So we want to show the actual applicants they're looking after, the interviews they have coming up, whether it's first or second, and have that place where they can actually edit all of the information. So once again, we're going to go back to our trusty little friend here, and we're going to add an editing tab just to start off with, where the interviewer or the team admin can edit information about the interviewer. So we're going to put editing, and if we open this up, we're going to go once again details and just add all of those fields apart from those default fields that we don't really care about. Just like that. Perfect. So as you can see, each interviewer is assigned to a specific first interview, and if it exists, a second interview. So I want to actually show that data. So I'm going to delete this once again, just to start from a clean kind of scratch. I will add a highlight the name, then email of the actual interviewer, as well as when they actually were created. So when they actually joined the company. And for the created date, I'm going to put it as a relative date just to make it a bit cleaner. So you can see they got added 2 hours ago. But this will be an idea of when the interviewer actually joined the company. And now we're going to add a collection database. This collection is going to be for the applicant side of things. And here we want to show the first interview on a calendar. So we're going to go over to calendar. And for the start date, I'm going to scroll down to first interview date. Now it's loading. You'll only be able to see the start interview dates. In an ideal world, we'd have the first interview dates and the second interview dates on one calendar combined. However, that does get a bit more complicated. So instead, I'm just going to copy this and set one as the first interview calendar and the second one as a second interview calendar. So if I scroll down, all I want to do is change this from first interview date to second interview date. So now this calendar is for the first interview, so we should go ahead and actually label that. And this second calendar is for the second interviews. So now, guys, just to give you an example, if we go with the data and we move some of the interviews to this month, so we can actually see some data. First interview date, they're all in 2019. So if we go ahead and move this to 2024, I'll do the exact same thing for the second interviews. And we go over back to the database side of things. We can see now we can see all that specific information for the first interviews and the second interviews. Now, I just realized something which is very, very important. At the moment, this is going to show all the interviews, regardless of whether it's for our specific interviewer or not. We don't want to see that. So for this, I'm going to go with the options section. I'm going to add a relative filter, and I only want to show the first interview collection. So now it's only going to show us the interviews that Andy Park is actually assigned to, and we'll do the exact same thing for the secondary interviews. So just to give you an example, at the moment you can see there's only one interview here, but if we go over to another interviewer, so for example, we go to Ari Bloom or we go to Karina, we can see she can see different interviews because she's only seeing the interviews that are actually assigned to her. Now, once again, it's not ideal that it's two separate calendars. I think it just makes this page a bit too long and even distracting in my opinion. But for now, it's going to do. And the last thing I want to add, I'm going to add a different tab just to show the interviewer or the applicants that are actually looking after. So if you go over here and we change this to applicants in the third tab, we go and actually edit this. This is going to be a collection of all the different applicants, but instead of it being a calendar or anything like that, it's just going to be the different cards. And then now I only want to show applicants that the interviewer is actually assigned to either on a first interview or on a second interview. So for that, I'm going to head over to the filter. I'm going to have to have two different filters. So the first filter is going to be an all filter. So first interviewer is one of, and then I'm going to put interviewers user item, and I'm going to add an all filter and filter, sorry, an all filter, and I'll do the exact same thing for the second interviewer. So if I scroll down, second interviewer is one of, choose the interview item. Perfect. So now we're already seeing applicants that this specific lead, which is Karina, is either interviewing in the first stage or second stage. And now we basically gone ahead and actually completed our application, guys. I'm super happy with this. Let me take you on a quick tour before we move on to the next step of the video. So first we have the applicant page where you can see all the different applicants. And if you open up these specific pages, you can see a summary of all the information from the applicant, their first interview summary, the second interview summary, as well as the specific stage that they're in. And we have two cool buttons here. We can automatically assign different interviewers. And let's say the interviewer wants to complete a second interview summary. All they have to do is press this button and they can automatically see everything that's actually happening. Now, if you go back to the application status, we have a couple of graphs here showing us just a quick overview of the different applicants as well as different filters that we can filter the data by to see specific things. So, for example, if you want to see data for the Chief Creative Officer, it will already show us the data for that specific role. Then for the application board, the applicants again, but this time it's just on a board. And once again, we have different filters here. We can filter by a specific job they're applying for or even a specific location. If you go to positions, we have this tab, we can see all the different positions, only the open positions and only the closed positions. And if you go over to interviewers, here we get overview all the different interviewers. If you open up a page, this is the page that the interviewer can actually come to. So they get started, for example, and every morning they can log in and see the interviews they have coming up and the interviews they have for the first or second stage. And they can also keep track of all the different applicants that they're actually looking after. And then for the department, once again, nothing complicated, but here they can see all the different departments as well as the positions that attached to those departments and the actual interviewers. And guys, that's pretty much it. One thing I didn't emphasize in the last video is that a key thing about this app is somewhere people can actually log in. So you could update to a custom URL and actually use this as a HR platform for your business, having a different interviewers or team admins actually log in. It's very, very cool, guys. But there's one more thing that we could do to actually take this to this next level, and you guessed it, it's using automation. Now, in this video, I'm not going to be showing you specific automations and how to actually create it, but I do want to emphasize the importance of actually tying in automation to a platform like this and how much more powerful you can actually make your internal applications. So I'll give you two examples. You could have firstly a meeting automation. So you can integrate something like Calendly. So whenever an interview is scheduled, it will find the applicant record. If no record exists, it will create one. If it does already exist, it will update one. Send an email to the applicant and also send an email to the interviewer, as well as updating those different databases that we build in the first step. You could easily create this for all the different types of interviews you have. So first interviews, second interviews for different roles. And it's just a super, super easy way to actually keep your database up to date whenever someone books a meeting or whenever interview is actually scheduled. The second automation I would 100% set up is email automations. Now here, because we have different stages of the interview process, whenever there's an update to a specific stage, we can filter it to make sure that it's only going through, for example, if there's a hire, and then send an email to the applicant, send an email to the interviewer, and then create a task for the interviewer depending on the specific circumstances. You'd obviously repeat this for all different stages and just have a kind of clear map as you move through different stages of what the interviewer needs to do and just keeping the applicant as involved as possible through these automatic emails. Once again, guys, these are just examples, but I'll definitely build this out if you wanted a really, really good recruitment system. Now, in order to build this out, most no-code tools like NoLoco have their own workflow builder, and it is quite powerful. But I would always recommend connecting something like Zapier or Make because they have much more integrations and much more possibilities. So it will actually allow you to build more complex automations, which is something that you may need depending on how complicated the recruitment system actually gets. But once again, I'm not going to be showing that to you guys. If you want a part 2 video going over the specific automations for recruitment side of things, I'm more than happy to record it. But that's pretty much it, guys. You now have a good understanding of how to actually build a recruitment system from scratch using low-code tools. Once again, this is a video requested by Akfiros. Sorry if I messed up your name. So if you have any suggestions of different things you want to see us build live like we did today, just leave a comment below. I say this all the time, but we're quite a small channel. So if you drop a comment, we're 100% going to see it and respond to you. So if you want to be featured in the next video or you want your idea to come to life, make sure to leave a comment below and we'll get it recorded as soon as you possibly can. But apart from that, guys, that's it from me. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more videos like this on your feed. And if you want any of the resources we actually use in this video, we started creating free digital products for every single video. These basically just include the different databases, for example, different automation blueprints, and all the different resources basically used in this video together in one place. They're 100% free, as with everything else that we actually offer. So I recommend you actually make the most of the resources you have available for you guys and check them out using the first link in the description. There's also a bunch of different links to show us what we actually do. And if you want to work with us, you can check those out. And you can find all of that information below in the description. But apart from that, guys, it's been a pleasure actually recording this video. It's another long one, but the last one performed quite well. So I thought, let me do it again. Thank you guys so much for watching. If I rushed through anything, please leave a comment and ask the question. We're here to actually support you guys with any of your questions. It's been a pleasure actually recording this video. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more videos like this in your feed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.